Men are killed every day. This is his 139th resurrection. Every resurrection I wake up exactly at 7 a.m. Relive the day. So he can remember everything before he was killed. He knows the killer's every move. Get up and duck the knife. Bend over and pull up your pants. He can predict the exact time and location of the killer. You can kill him with just a t-shirt. Make a cup of coffee and take a sip. As soon as the killer got up, he threw it in the killer's face after a long wait for the killer to rise again. The second killer in the helicopter. With Gatling in his hand. The piggy team took out the first killer. While the second killer was on the altar. John picked up the knife and threw it at the helicopter. Take out the second killer. But the runaway Gatlin is still running. Trajectory will drift out to the right. John followed ballistics unhurriedly to the couch. He knew the plane would hit the living room in 6 seconds. 2 seconds later, the wing bribes down. But the plane is about to explode. Then John looked at his watch. Take a leap at a good time. And he fell into the truck. You might not know. For not falling on a truck 22 times before. Crushed to death. But the hunt did not stop. He quickly hijacked a limo. The car owner would yell if there was an accident. But no one came to help him. By this time the third group of killers had arrived. John grabbed the killer's gun, took out the third wave of enemies. It's just good luck today. More often than not he was killed by the enemy. Even if he survives, he won't make it to 12:47. When it rises again, he decided to find out the truth, so he called his scientist wife. It was the wife's boss who answered the phone. From the boss, John learned that his wife had been in an accident, but he didn't believe it and thought it must be old. But a strange thing happened that day. He played too many games with his children in the underground square. I lived until 12:50. Based on his previous experience, he would have died at 12:47, 3 minutes longer than the time of death. Who knows, just walked to the exit. Killer appeared. He quickly picked up his son and ran to the underground square, but he was still shot by a mob of killers. But before he died, to see the fatherly love in the child's eyes come alive again, John made a new discovery. He's been fitted with a tracking device. So the killer could find him. The underground plaza is blocking the signal. Gave him an extra 3 minutes. He needs to find the tracker. Find out who the boss is. The 144th resurrection. With this goal, John didn't take out the killer, threatened him with a knife and told him where the tracker was. But the killer didn't know that. John threw him out. The killer died in a hail of bullets. But John looked all over his body and found no tracker. But I don't know if it means death every time it starts. We'll be trapped in an endless cycle of pain. Men have been resurrected 141 times. I wake up the same morning every time I die. Relive the day. Familiar machete. Familiar aircraft. Familiar blast. Every familiar killer has a familiar recipe. Familiar taste. But he's gonna get killed anyway, right? And I don't make it past 12:57 every day. But this time he made it to 12:50. 3 more minutes of life. It's because John went into the basement. The killers have lost their GPS. But John searched himself. I couldn't find the locator on my body. Got a mole from a security friend. Top tracking. Often in the most unexpected ways. The tracker must be hidden in the teeth. John remembered. The girl with the long hair I ran into at the bar last night. Not a dentist at all. Put instead. The killer in the tracker then pulled out a few teeth. He finally found the tracker. Just when he thought he'd get away with it, the killer took the gun and pointed it at him. 145 resurrection times. John used the tracker to pull the hit. Take down the killer in one fell swoop. He's going to fight the big boss. John drove to the secret base. Got in a car accident and ended up on a wall. The 146th time John had a crazy idea. Turned into a biker gang and flew into the base. Security guards in full force guarding the car. But John wasn't in the car. He took out a bunch of Weiweimen with a remote-controlled time bomb. But when he was ready for revenge, the head of security had a gun pointed at him. Finally 147 cycles. The opportunity he's waiting for. There's a killer who looks like John that John took down with ease. He took the killer's ID and slipped in. Confident enough to get past security and into the elevator. I don't have access to my card. Killed by the killer in the elevator. John with experience. Same routine to get into the elevator again. Preemptively killed the killer in the elevator. But he was greeted out of the elevator by a group of killers. He smiled and shot himself. It turns out there's surveillance in the elevator. Everything about him has been watched. This time John had a new strategy. He pretended to be a killer. It eluded surveillance and a bunch of killers. Successfully entered the lobby. John met the murderess again. He had a knife. Trying to kill John with a gun. He's not smart, he's confident. But Super Killer Girl is not just any killer. Even though John has a great gun, the Ophionic Serpentine has many variations. Dodged the bullet every time. What's more, Killer Girl's amazing technology make John unstoppable. From submachine guns to rifles. Died here several times in a row. John could never find a way through the customs. He's falling apart. John had an idea since guns don't work. Then used the swordsman's sword. He found the world champion fencing master. At John's repeated request, the fencer agreed to teach him the sword. But he only has 1 day of events. It's a good thing John is smart. From empty hands to wooden swords. From wooden sword to real sword. He soon defeated the fencing master. He went to the Tang again this time. John was killed 88 times by Guanyin. Every time I kill him, I'm Guanyin. Little did John learn to make swords with swords this time. Guanyin stabbed John with a sharp sword. John did it faster. Cut off a lock of Guanyin's long hair. Guanyin was amazed. Launched a more violent attack. But John only used one hand, blocking the power of the goddess of mercy, but he still downplayed the enemy. Guanin's serial knife killed the past. John is forced to drop his sword and grab Guanin's wrist. John turned around and hugged Guanin, put an arrow through his heart with Guanin's sword. Then John finally got a glimpse of the brain behind the scenes. But the truth broke him. Turns out the wife was doing the experiment. Once cut off a lock of his hair, DNA was extracted. To stop the big boss from taking over the world, wife rebooted the time loop machine. John was also drawn into an endless cycle, but going through death and rebirth isn't just for him. His wife and son will suffer the same cycle, seeing my family killed over and over again. John tried and failed to save them. Finally, on cycle 216, he took out the killer first, went to the underground square and found his son, play games with him and talk to him. He got to know his son in the process of getting along, learned how to be friends with him. But now, the son told his mother that she had called him this morning. He picked up his phone and looked at 7:03. John was resurrected at exactly 7:00 each time, which means his wife wasn't dead when he did the loop. After being revived again, John is killed in the headspace of the base. He saw his wife alive at 7:14. John has 14 minutes to get his wife out of the loop. Free him when we know what's going on. The resurrected John. To the helicopter outside the living room. Take out the killer threat quickly. The pilot flew to the base. With full firepower, Gatlin began to fire wildly. 7:12 he crosses the corridor to kill the killer. John arrived at the lab at exactly 7:14. Before the big boss kills his wife, he shot first and killed the big boss. This time, he finally made it through the customs to save his wife. But it wasn't over. My wife told me the time machine would reboot. It will still enter the cycle. The only way is to get into the time loop. Reset normal time. Rebootable time machine. Will there be new problems? Not even the wife. To stop the cycle, John walked into the time machine without hesitation. The wife was full of tears. He responded to his wife with a firm, persistent look. Whatever the future holds, the countless cycles that John went through let him grow up to be a proper father, a worthy husband and a true warrior. This is just as the wife wanted. Follow the black cat to bring you into the movie life.